And the last point there, and I'm going to ask Calvin just for some thoughts quickly, is that, there's this idea of strategic ambidexterity, or the two-speed organization, and we're all grappling with this. We have architectures and systems and processes and ways of doing things that you can trace very far back in our history, and then we're trying to leverage the latest and greatest artificial intelligence. And leaders have to understand and bring together these two worlds. They have to run a large-scale workforce with a vast range of skills, because we know we still need to run the bank, and there's a lot that still depends on it. But we need to create something that we will then, migrate everything onto, take all those people with us, make sure there's an evolutionary path to that new digitally transformed business world that we're aiming for. Calvin, any thoughts from your perspective on this idea of self-disruption and sort of internal innovation?
I find that concept of strategic ambidexterity quite interesting. It reminds me of when I played cricket in high school, and you had some players that could bat right-handed but bowl left-handed, and those were quite valuable in the team just because of the diversity that they offered. And I remember you mentioned something really interesting in your book, Peter, and I'm hoping maybe you could touch on that. Is one of the barriers to this ambidexterity is actually managers, and they hinder that kind of innovative culture. I was wondering if you could comment on that. I found that very interesting.
Absolutely. And I think the management structure of the modern day organization, I think it was Steve Denning or even Porter, or one of those great thinkers, that said, the management structures of the modern day organization are really what we have to thank for building the modern world, because, that structure was what was designed to execute and implement on these visions and these plans. And the MBAs of the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, that sort of Accenture, Harvard Business School type of thinking was what built the modern firm, and that relied on the management structure. And it worked for a while simply because they had a longer horizon to which they could predict and plan and put in management structures and teams within those management structures to create value for shareholders. However, as we explained on Monday, we're in the second half of this exponential curve, where the change that is happening is so rapid and so quick and so destructive that managers themselves are feeling, almost out of their depth and unable to catch up and unable to adapt and be as agile as they need to be. And it's largely not their fault. We, as large organizations, have trained managers to maintain the status quo, to have structure and discipline and policies and procedures in the way that we run teams, call centers, branch networks, physical footprints, production, factories, warehouses, you name it. That's been managers' responsibility. And now, with the rapid pace of change accelerated by COVID, you find middle management struggling to adapt and change. The top management get it. They understand the need for change. The bottom layers, the developers, the agile thinkers, the graduate engineers like yourselves, we read the literature. We've got no skin in the game. We don't have a career built out of climbing the management ladder where there's a personal vested interest. If I'm not a manager, what am I going to do? But if agile brings a new way of self-organized thinking, and for teams to be highly adaptable and independent of those management structures, management is going to resist that. And to your point, Calvin, are going to become the blocker potentially. And so the thrust of my PhD research was to help managers understand how they can create those environments within which those teams can be successful, a lot more independent of those managers, but in which managers could then adapt potentially into new roles into the future. So the point around leadership and their strategic ambidexterity, that's going to be something that plays out significantly over the next decade or so. But middle management, yes, absolutely. And the example of General Motors and Saturn, middle management rejected Saturn, and they made sure that it was a failure. What we've tried to do is we've tried to have sort of, federated or owner-managed innovation. Our culture here at FirstRand is one of owner-manager, very entrepreneurial spirit. But now we need to invest digitally transformed ways of thinking into those owner managers. We still want the leaders of our business units and our products to be passionate, owners of those businesses as if it's their own, but we don't want the unintended consequence of the management structure prohibiting the flow of information and the collaboration that you need across these departmental silos. And something that I talk about extensively in the CodeFest course is the Dilbertization, of the modern day firm, and the cubicle mindset, where we've trained people to stay in their cubicle, just do their job. There's their job description. There's your salary. It's extrinsic motivation, and don't think outside of that cubicle. Don't think about trying to create value horizontally, because you maintain the status quo, and the power flows down the organization, the information flows up, and the value flows to the shareholders. Unfortunately, we're in a modern age now where all of those previous management theories are being thrown out of the window. So great point there that you mentioned, Calvin. Very good insights there. Okay, I am putting the link to the CodeFest course. So I'm going to say learn about hackathons in this course, free access here. So please do go and jump into that course. I'll see you there. Ask any questions that you want, introduce yourselves to the other students, and enjoy the journeying inside the F&B CodeFest through that course.